We got some crazy news this morning. We're going to switch topics to hockey. We were discussing kind of what we wanted to talk about in terms of topics when we hopped on here today, and like 10 minutes before we did, we're like, all right, well, one thing is locked in for us in that John Tortorella, coach of the Philadelphia Flyers, was relieved of his duties. Interesting, because Elliot Freeman tweeted that it looks like he was stepping down. I don't know if it was like a mutual decision, but the point is he will no longer be coaching the Philadelphia Flyers. I am not going to say I'm surprised, but I'm a little bit shocked that it happened as quick as it did. And there's a couple of factors in that manner. First of all, the Flyers have lost 11 of their last 12 games. Let's put that just bluntly. They put up 2 7-pieces against them in back-to-back evenings, Chicago being one of them, and then the Leafs on Tuesday night. Tortorella had some interesting comments, basically suggesting, like, I'm not interested in coaching this team for the rest of the year. If you read that on paper, it definitely sounds a little bit more malicious than he delivered them. I was listening to the interview. I just think he realized in the past he was riding his guys a little bit too heavy and decided, I'm just going to let this go. These guys are already morally probably in the dumpster right now. He's coached over 1,600 games and has never, this is an interesting one, he's never missed the playoffs with the same team in 3 straight seasons, and he was headed towards that this year before being let go.
Wow.
Reactions to this, guys? Did you see this coming, Brandon? Let's throw this one to you here.
I mean, I think you could tell that the writing was on the wall in terms of, I don't know that he would have made it to next season with the Flyers. I know he had 1 year left on his contract, but it definitely seemed that the trajectory of the team had changed a lot, especially throughout this season. I think last year that team was a bit of a surprise. You know, they pushed for the playoffs. I was just looking it up here. They had 87 points. They were just 4 points out of the playoffs. This year, it looked like they were going to kind of hang around that wild card spot, at least early on in the season. And then I don't know what it was, but something just happened where that team just started to look more and more like it did in Torts' first kind of start with the Flyers. So I mean, I think it was pretty obvious that something was going to happen, and the way that Torts was speaking and the way that the team was playing, I think it was becoming clear that they were no longer, whether you want to say that the team was no longer listening to his message or that they just weren't capable of continuing to play the style that he was preaching. But either way, it seems like the fit just wasn't there anymore. And I don't know if we'll see Torts again. You know, he tends to kind of spot up in these random jobs sometimes. So I wouldn't rule it out, but it's tough to see a guy like that, like Torts. I think everybody knows the kind of the genuineness of the coach and everything that he stands for. So it's tough when you see something that doesn't work out, because you just love to see the Flyers, especially a team with their history, kind of have a guy like Torts who can really push the envelope and try to get these guys back to a good situation with the organization. So yeah, I think you could see it coming, but it is a bit.
I don't think like Torts was going to last either, Brandon, in terms of next year, only because we know that Rick Tocchet, his deal is up at the end of this year, and he hasn't signed an extension. He's one of the best coaches in the NHL, and he's from Philly, which just clears the way for Philly and all the rumors that were already starting about Rick Tocchet going to Philly. This just makes it more evident that that is a real possibility to happen now. But in terms of Torts, when we think about it, like, were we really thinking this team was a playoff team this year? Like, they weren't. They were sellers at the deadline. They fully bought into this rebuild and said this is going to be another year of the rebuild. I don't think this was really like a Torts on Torts. I think this is just freeing that position up for the future and trying to get Rick Tocchet to be your head coach for the future. It would be funny if Torts and Tocchet swapped roles.
Yeah.
That'd be Elias Pettersson's worst nightmare coming to fruition. John Tortorella, if he thinks Rick Tocchet's hard on him, John Tortorella would wake him up.
He knows the market. He's been there before, right?
Yeah, he has. But I personally don't think Tortorella did a terrible job with this team. I don't think this team was built for success in the time that he was there, but I understand where the franchise is going in terms of the decision to let him go at this point with Tocchet coming available.
I didn't even think of that. That aspect of it does make some sense, like pieces being in the right places of the puzzle. What I'll say that kind of, like, as an LA Chargers fan, 2 seasons ago, or not this past season, the season prior, where Brandon Staley was someone who was kind of on the rocks. He had changed his mindset in terms of how he coached. And then they got completely dismantled by the Vegas Raiders, which to their account were not a great team. was like what, the 60 to like 18 or 20 game.
Yeah, it was
And
not good.
everyone knew the writing was on the wall. He got fired the next day. Wasn't even like a couple days later. The way that the Philadelphia Flyers, I didn't watch Sunday's game. They played Chicago, but they lost 7-4.
That was
You
on
can't
goal.
let Chicago.
That was
You can't let
goaltending.
Chicago put up 7.
That was
Yeah.
the goaltending in that game was so bad. Like I was watching that game and it was
Yeah.
so bad. Like that.
Fedotov, I picked him up. I said this in I think the hockey show. I picked him up in fantasy to try and get a win so that I could move on to the semifinals or finals in a different fantasy league. And Fedotov let 7 goals in, and I was like, this was never meant to be. And then actually watching and dissecting Philly's performance on Tuesday against the Leafs, it was maybe the worst performance I've seen a team play in the entire league the whole year. Like out of position constantly. Every player just looked like they weren't invested. Like it just didn't seem like they had any fight in them. And you just know that sometimes the coach's message just falls on deaf ears. And I agree with you, Brandon. I just don't know if Torts has if his style is the same in this NHL anymore. If it doesn't work in Philly and they can't kind of stick with his message, I don't know where else would fit. It's not on him. I hear he's a great person. Obviously, he's like an electric factory in front of the mic, but I hear he's a very good person off the ice. But I just don't know if that's the way it's going to work. I'm interested to see how Matvei Mishkov is working moving forward, because first-year player, having your coach leave halfway through the year might sound great, but then you have a new system to end the year and a new system to start the season. So I'm really curious to see how it affects a player like that with a coaching change so early in his career. But I do see maybe it was time to move on.